So welcome back, my fellow duplicates. Now, in my last video, or one of my last videos, we were talking about the next update to this game that'll be happening about a week from today. And in that update, there is some changes to the tiles. We have used abyssalite for a long time now to kind of really negate any sort of heat transfer between anything, but that's not the case anymore, at least when this next update comes out. And I haven't seen anything in the patch notes that would change the way that's working. One notable thing I would say from the last version till now is that the Chauvel critter is only going to produce 50%, not 500%. Somebody fat fingered an extra zero on there. So rather than making more of everything, that actually is going to make less of that to try to control the regolith problem. However, we were going to use that to make infinite dirt, but yeah, never mind. But I would say the most disruptive thing, judging by all of the different conversations that we've had down here in the comment section of that video, is really all talking about the different tiles that we have and whether or not abyssalite should be in the game early on or should not be existent, or what tiles can we use. So that spurred me to think, hey, let's do a practical test with a couple of these different methods that people are talking about. One, we've got a vacuum all the way around something like a farm, or we're just going to use the best material we have without insulated tiles. Maybe we want to save some resources. What happens when we take that and we make it into an insulated tile? And what happens if we start to use different materials that we get later on in the game, and how much benefit do those materials give us in a practical example, such as trying to keep a farm at the right temperature? Okay, so what you're seeing here is one of the farm templates that I like to use in my game here, and this is actually based off another video that I did a while back called the Automated Wheezewort Experiment. So what I have done here is I use a wheezewort, and you can see what's happening here, and that's just going to continue to cool down this environment. However, it's hooked up via a thermal sensor to a door, and that will open up the door, which turns off the wheezewort. So you can temperature control your room with just a wheezewort. Pretty handy little thing. So starting off this experiment here in cycle 6, everything's starting off at the exact same time, at the exact same temperature. And we can see that the gas, the carbon dioxide, actually all started off at 46 degrees Celsius. However, there are different tiles that are being, that this gas is being exposed to. Up here at the very top, we have sedimentary rock. Okay, so the reason that we're seeing such a big difference here is because the thermal transfer between the gas and the tile is actually quite a bit different. Because if you take a look at a normal tile here, you'll notice that its thermal conductivity is 2. However, if you take a look at that same sort of tile, but insulated, it's 0.02. So there's a big difference there. As far as early materials that you can use, there's 2 of them that actually stand out. Sedimentary rock has a specific heat capacity of 0.2 with a thermal conductivity of 2. Igneous rock has the same thermal conductivity of 2, but it has a higher specific heat capacity. So that's why I'm using sedimentary rock. It has a little bit lower capacity for heat, meaning it won't affect things quite as much. It basically stores less heat energy, right? It's easier to change the temperature. So it's not much of a stretch to go from a sedimentary rock here to an insulated sedimentary rock, and we can see right off the bat what a big difference that'll make for the temperature. So as we let this play out, we're going to see some things happen here, and we'll be able to see how the whole system actually works to monitor, to keep its own temperature. So once we get beyond sedimentary rock, the next things that we have available to us is ceramic, and the other one that actually stood out that I don't think anybody was really talking about is mafic rock. Now you can find mafic rock if you dig all the way up to the surface, which is possible to do. You can actually get up there, and that has some interesting properties. It has a specific heat capacity of 0.2, but a thermal conductivity of 1, so it's actually twice as good at insulating as sedimentary rock. So ceramic is a little bit better than mafic rock with a thermal conductivity of 0.62. However, you do have to manufacture it. And you can do that by using a kiln. So you combine clay and a little bit of coal, and you get ceramic out. So you can see temperature-wise, after just a fraction of a cycle here, most of these farms are under control, and they're all about the same sort of temperature here. So once all of these get down to 15 degrees Celsius, I'm going to flood this entire environment with some really hot gas, and we'll see just how good each one of these systems are at keeping the heat out. You can also see that the system over here on the left doesn't have a door, and I think the door is probably going to be our biggest weakness in any of these systems here. Another place you might want to insulate certain things might be if you're trying to use some wheezeworts to create a little bit of a cooling loop that you can then pipe on over to, let's say, some equipment rooms or something like that to keep the temperature down. You could also be getting close to some geysers early on in the game that are actually quite hot. You will want to protect the rest of your base from that hot gas and potentially use some different things such as liquid or, again, wheezeworts in order to cool the gas down there and make it workable. There's plenty of hot places in your base that you don't want getting into where your duplicates are living and all that fun stuff. I mean, just look at this natural gas geyser. It outputs at 150 C. So you can see what's going on here. This system is starting to, temperature control itself. These are opening up and it's just keeping that same temperature. So for my heat source, I'm going to use hydrogen gas, but I'm also going to use just a humongous amount of mass. So it'll be like 2 million kilograms. And I'm going to do this at a temperature of 75 degrees Celsius. I think that should be a good number. We'll just have to see. Look at all of this hydrogen. All right, let's watch this. Yep, that's a lot of heat. Okay, so right off the bat, you can, look at this sedimentary rock up here that isn't insulated. And look at how crazy hot that's getting already. You can see that the temperature inside of there is instantly gone up to 50 degrees Celsius. However, the exact same material right down here hasn't really changed, in just this short amount of time. However, what we're seeing up here with the vacuum, well, we got some leakage going on right over here. It's quite hard to completely encapsulate something in vacuum, and not only that, to actually build it. The way I actually build a vacuum is to kind of say, okay, this is the area that I want to build a vacuum in, like this. I'll kind of build something like that, and then make sure to flood the base so that gas can't get past the water. And then I come in there and I dig it out, or deconstruct it or whatever, and then you're left with kind of a, well, don't use polluted water, but you could be left with a vacuum there. It's tricky. It's tricky to build a vacuum, no matter what you do. All right, so if we look at some of these other places down here, you can see that the door, again, is really bleeding a lot of heat into this farm. You can see how that's affecting that first chunk of, that first mealwood plant right there. So you can see in the span of half a cycle here, exposed to that much heat, without insulated tiles, this stuff is already overheated. Okay, so I'm just going to let this play out for a little bit, and we'll see if any of these farms down here can survive, with an environment of 75 degrees Celsius. Okay, so what I've learned from this experiment thus far is that I should really start the temperature lower, something that we could possibly see, such as 43 degrees Celsius. And then I'm going to step it up over a series of cycles and try to figure out at what point does that arrangement fail. So you can see at 75, I gave it a 0 because it failed, a 1, it's failing, and then a 2, it hasn't failed at all. And we'll be able to get some sort of chart out of this thing. So I'm going to reload it and start back at the beginning again, and we'll start at 50 C and work our way up. Okay, so that's right around 50 C. Yep. So that's pretty similar to what you'd see if you were to try to build a farm in this environment here. A little bit hotter. After cycle 9 at 50 degrees Celsius, we can see that for the most part, that's all the same. We're at 19.3, we're at 20 for the insulated tiles versus the weakest stuff we have, which is 19.2. So any of them with a door on it, actually, there's really no benefit. Sedimentary rock versus insulated tiles, if you have a door exposed to that heat. These are all responding the same way. What about what do we got over here? 14.7, 8.4. Okay, so what I was seeing in my last little experiment here is that there wasn't a significant change from one cycle to the next when exposed to the same amount of heat. Some things were slowly heating up, but it wasn't really a big difference. So I'm going to increase the temperature with each cycle, because honestly that's all I have time for. I can't sit here for 5 cycles on each temperature. That would just take way too long for me. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sandbox tool. We're going to paint that into a vacuum. And now I'm going to step this up to 75 and see if any of these farms instantly fail, you know what I mean, or within a cycle. If I see something different, I'll change, you know, from one cycle to multi-cycles. But all right, so that's 75 degrees blowing through. And right off the bat, I can see that the temperature down here, yeah, it's starting to increase a little bit more. All right, so I'm at the end of cycle 9 where I bumped the temperature up another 25 degrees Celsius. And what we can see is that any of these rooms that have the insulated tile around them, that have a door that's attached to them, are all starting to fail a little bit here. And they're all failing in the, you know, pretty much the exact same way. If we take a look at the sensor itself, this is at 25.5 C, 26, 26.8, 26.7. And just in case you're wondering, the ambient temperature of the hydrogen is pretty much the same all throughout. If anything, it's a little bit cooler up here by 0.2 degrees Celsius. So what we can see here is that, you know, in an environment that's 75 degrees Celsius, we don't need to go beyond sedimentary rock. We can just use the basic material as an insulated tile, and it's doing the exact same thing as an insulated tile, you know, for this system. It's working out just fine. I'm going to let this go for one more cycle to see if these farms on the down here fail. Okay, so the end of cycle 10, the story hasn't really changed. I think I think the farms over here are slowly heating up to the point where they will fail though. And the one that had the vacuum all the way around it has, well, nearly all the way around it, has already failed completely. Just like some of my dupes up here. They got too close to the regolith. And a lot of carbon dioxide. Where did all that come from, guys? What blew up around here? Why is there so much carbon dioxide? Alright, so coming up on the end of cycle 11. Yeah, this plant is really close to overheating, but it looks like the temperature has evened out. There's really no change at this point. It kind of just keeps going up and down. Maybe. I don't know. I would not be happy if that was how my farm was performing. Let's take it up to 100 C. Ooh. Okay, so while these farms are slowly melting over there, I'm actually using this thing over here on Blueprints Not Included. I've been talking with the guy that makes this website, and you can make your own duplicates. I think this is pretty cool, and I think it would be pretty neat to see something like this actually added into the game at some point. It's not made by anybody who makes the game, but I want to see if I can make a Frankenmeep. You can change his colors and whatnot. Change his little idle stance. Yes, I love it. What does Frankenmeep look like? Oh my gosh, all the eyes blink at you at the exact same time. That's creepy. What does Frankenstein look like? You know what? Frankenstein and Meep, they have some things in common. That's an interesting revelation. I mean, the guy's always black and white, so... Alright, it's kind of like browns and grays, right? Maybe. Frankenstein's very two-tone. If I do say so. Oh! I'm not paying attention. What's going on with my game? Have you melted yet? Oh, no, there's still a couple plants that are holding on. Nope. Barely. Okay, so get this. The one that's next to sedimentary rock is the only one that still has a plant still kicking. Everybody else is overheated. I mean, it's at 29.5 C, so... Okay, so these insulated tiles are just doing a really good job here, so... We're gonna have to take it up a notch. Alright, let's try 200 degrees Celsius. See, now things are melting. Perfect. This is actually kind of cool. I like that. What other thing? Yes! That's interesting. No, what about this? That's a good look for you, Meep. Is anybody heating up? No. Not even a little bit. Insulated tiles are amazing. Alright. Okay then. How about 400 degrees? At some point, these tiles have got to give it up. Like, they just won't work anymore. I want to see at what temperature do we really actually see a difference here. What is a good brow color? Brown? Nope, dupes are dying. Look, Frankenstein even has a unibrow, sort of. Like a forehead brow. They're like two in the same. Actually, that's a little bit more accurate right there. This is actually a really cool thing. I like this. I love this. Okay, well, 400 degrees was not enough. Let's try 800. There's my dupe, Frankenmeep. No matter how much this Frankenmeep scrubs, he can never feel truly clean. Stress response, ugly crier. I could believe that. Cool. There you have it. There's other people, other dupes that people have made. You can go in there and see them all. Super Saiyan. Good stuff. Wait. Everybody died. Don't worry about that. Surprise, surprise. 800 degrees Celsius also was not enough. Oh, look, we got a little bit of steam in there, too. 1600 degrees Celsius. Holy mo... Look at how hot it is. Everything's melting. The wires don't even stand a chance. Ooh, that has had some interesting... look, it's melted and it's actually fallen down on this guy right here. We might have our first victim. Interesting. So we can see that the sedimentary rock is actually starting to cool down. It did heat up to begin with, but it is starting to cool off. And guess what? The temperature inside of there? Still 15 degrees Celsius. How is this Weezwort still running? What? Oh, it just takes a long time for that thing to heat up. That's why. 3,200 degrees Celsius. That's some hot stuff. Okay, so that was enough to finally melt. Gosh, did it melt the tile? Or what happened up there? Yeah, it got hot enough to actually reach its melting point. So the plants actually never overheated. The tile itself simply just self-destructed. I mean, granted, we're talking about thousands and thousands of degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, Maverick Rock is just shrugging it off like it's nothing. And there's a good chance this only failed because there's other stuff on top of it. Like, because that stuff has a higher thermal conductivity, therefore it went through. But you can see this side over here is also heating up as well. Does it really matter? Are you gonna have this much heat? I think at this point we've definitively answered at least one question that I was wondering is just how effective is sedimentary rock as an insulated material. And you know what? It's pretty darn good. I'm not so sure that we really need to go to all the trouble to actually make a bunch of insulated ceramic. If you're just gonna do something like a farm. Now, if we're running pipes and stuff around, maybe there's something more to it. I mean, this thing's holding up to magma. So, all right, 6,400 degrees Celsius. Are we gonna see Maffick finally fail? Maybe? No, doesn't look like it. How is this auto sweeper not like a puddle? Wow, look at this. Look at all this stuff. It's just holding up to all of that temperature. To be honest, the game doesn't even know how hot it is anymore. Look, it's like 3,000. It's just filling the game. It's got its own gas now. Okay, get out of here. Stop. Temperature 1,000,000. Okay, maybe that was too much. All right, so if we take a look at our data here, what we can see is that for the most part, trying to fill that area with a vacuum and not use an insulated tile is not really worth the effort. Insulated, even sedimentary rock, is just fine. Pretty much an insulated tile seems to be just the trick. Look at that. You can go all the way up to 1,600 degrees Celsius and still have a mealwood farm if you really wanted to. So if you want to put your mealwood farm near a rocket, it would probably still melt because rockets. But the other thing to note is that the door was definitely the weak point here. It didn't matter what we did with the insulated tiles, the door is the problem. So you can see the solution I have up here. I just have 2 liquid locks side by side with a vacuum in the middle. You could fill that with liquid, or you could just pump it out or build it that way. That's one method. There's obviously more methods to do that. A triple door system is a good way to do that. So you have 3 of these in a row, and then the middle one is automated in such a way that it'll close and then reopen. And then you usually use something along the lines of like a weight plate out here to trigger that door to cycle closed and then reopen. That's one way of doing it. There's other potentially other ways of doing it. Of course, I think that'll be a topic for another video. Or if you got some ideas of how to automate that, that would be a good one to kind of post down below. But there you have it, guys. I think that was a nice little experiment, and I feel like I learned quite a bit today. I'm going to trust insulated tiles quite a bit more than I have in the past, because they work out pretty good. So don't really need to use a lot of abyssalite. We'll have to look into pipes and stuff as well. I think we'll have a similar result, though. I like it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you found this video somewhat informative or helpful. And if I've earned your subscription, then thank you so much for that. Have a great day, guys. Stay awesome. Peace. Brothgar out.